For the nitrogen cycle, similar to the carbon cycle, the source of the inorganic nitrogen gas, or inorganic entity that we're looking at, is found in the atmosphere. In fact, nitrogen makes up approximately 80% of our atmosphere. And the reason it makes up this large portion is because nitrogen gas generally is very inert. It doesn't react with a lot of things. And so, as a result, when it's in the atmosphere, it's not in a form that's extremely useful. And so we have to take it and convert it into a form that is useful for the body to be able to take it in. And we'll talk about 3 ways that this occurs. Within the body, nitrogen is used as a building block for a large number of molecules. Okay? We use it in photosynthesis. And it's also used in some of the building blocks of your DNA and cell membranes and everything else. So it's used in a lot of organic molecules. It's not as many as carbon. Carbon is the most important, but nitrogen is one of the most important. So again, we have our abiotic in the atmosphere and our biotic living system. Within the atmosphere, it exists as N2 gas, or nitrogen gas, and to get it into an organic compound, we have to convert it. And we convert it into something called a nitrate or a nitrite. Okay? And so we have 3 ways of doing this that brings this into a form that we can use. And this process is not very efficient, and we know this because we still have a large amount of nitrogen in our atmosphere. But we do have a way of returning the nitrogen that's taken into living things to the atmosphere, because if we didn't, again, we wouldn't have a large amount in the atmosphere. Okay? So, we start off with most of the nitrogen in the atmosphere as N2. For the biotic component, we get into the soils as nitrates or nitrite, and this is what organisms take up and then use. Okay? The process up by converting it is something called fixing. Nitrogen fixing. Okay? And it occurs in 3 ways. And then we have a main way in which we return it to the atmosphere. So, our 3 ways of getting it converted into a form that we can use is done by nitrifying bacteria. These are special bacteria. They're often found in the plant's roots of legumes, so like beans and peas and peanut plants. We have lightning in the atmosphere that allows this to occur. And we have cyanobacteria. Now, we've talked about the importance of cyanobacteria in the production of oxygen and the conversion of carbon from inorganic carbon to organic carbon in the oceans. So they are also very important in converting nitrogen into a usable form. Okay, and then we return the nitrogen to the atmosphere by another group of bacteria called denitrifying bacteria. And what these do is they take our nitrogen-containing compounds and they convert them back into N2. And these bacteria are very efficient, and so that they're able to take all of the nitrogen that these organisms have converted into a usable form and convert it back into a non-usable form. Okay? Now, once we have these 2 main processes, nitrifying bacteria and lightning, they produce our nitrates, or a usable form of nitrogen in our soil. Then our plants can take it up, then animals will eat the plants, and then decomposers will break them down and return it back to the soil. So once nitrogen comes out of the atmosphere, it could cycle through the biotic component of an ecosystem for a long time. But eventually, our decomposers will consist of some denitrifying bacteria, which will return this to the atmosphere. Okay. We can get a similar process as on land occurring in water or the oceans, involving our cyanobacteria, where they'll take the nitrogen of the atmosphere into the water, convert it into a form the plants in the water can use, then the animals in the water will use it, then decomposers will break it down, ultimately getting to denitrifying bacteria.